Trusty's every bit the passer that Cameron Carter-Vickers is, and if not better. And he plays on the left side with left foot, which we don't have a lot of. Like, so if I'm thinking about sort of upside moving forward, like I'm thinking more Trusty than Cameron Carter-Vickers. I feel like Cameron Carter-Vickers, like we know who he is.
What is who's leading the race to start the Nations League, CONCACAF Nations League finals, semifinals, finals in March? We got Chris Richards, who has started 4 of the last 5 games for Palace, coming back from injury. He played in the middle of a back 3 against Stockport this weekend in front of Matt Turner. There was one little hiccup between him and Mark Yehi, which ended up leading to that good save by Matt Turner, where he didn't step to the ball, didn't see the guy over his right shoulder till it's too late. These are a little blips, but it was nice to see him playing in the middle. Usually he's playing on the left or right side of someone in the middle in the back 3 for Oliver Glasner. You have Mark McKenzie, who lost 2-1 this past weekend to Strasbourg. He played on the right side. Now, Mark McKenzie, kind of inadvertently part of 3 significant plays in this game. One, he made a back pass to his goalkeeper. Goalkeeper slipped. It's not Mark McKenzie's fault. I thought he made the right decision. Goalkeeper slips coming out. The guy wins it and walks it in. The next play, they're in a high press situation. He slips out on the sideline. They play through that pressure. And then 3 or 4 passes later, it's in the goal. Maybe if I'm nitpicking this guy, maybe his recovery could have been a little bit quicker or a little bit more like oh shit moment, right? You got to hit that next gear. I didn't see that when you watch the replay in particular. He could have maybe. I don't think it makes any difference in terms of who scores, but just that kind of extra if I'm nitpicking. And then they had a chance to make it 2-2, Toulouse, and they score, and Mark McKenzie just happens to be kind of impeding the goalkeeper, so they called it back. I thought it was kind of weak sauce, maybe. I don't know, but unfortunate that he was part of those 3. Now, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Austin Trusty started this weekend against Ross County away from home. I don't know if you guys saw this game. That field is awful. Yeah, that's just terrible, terrible playing conditions. They ended up winning 4-1. It was 1-1 for a while, and then they pulled away there at the very end. Not the sternest test. I don't think they're being challenged, let's say, for soccer acumen per se, but in terms of grit and getting plays and making stuff happen, you still got to go out there and play. You got to play whoever's in front of you. Joe Scally played for the first 80-some minutes against Bayern Munich. He was pretty solid throughout, even though Mönchengladbach had sat back for most of the game and their 1-0 loss to Bayern. When Kingsley Coman came on, he ate up. He ate up Joe Scally a few times, and it's tough if you're out there defending the whole time.
Too many people that he doesn't eat up.
That's true. That's fair. I'm just saying
he's an absolute monster.
He got beat by Coman. That gets across, ends up leading to the penalty. Harry Kane buries it, and it's tough. What are you gonna do? But so that's pretty much it. So I wonder, out of those that we just talked about, we'll leave. We don't know how January camp's gonna go, so we'll leave Ream and other options out for now. But just out of these players that I've noted, Chuck, I'll come to you first. Chris Richards, Mark McKenzie, CCV, Austin Trusty, Joe Scally. Of those 5, what's your pecking order? Like, who do you think has the best chance to start in the Nations League?
I think Richards is one when he's playing consistently and he's in good form and rhythm. I think he's number 1 in terms of that pool. I'd probably go McKenzie too, because I think his athleticism really helps him out. And he's still growing. He hasn't plateaued. Whereas like Cameron Carter-Vickers is solid, but he's plateaued in my mind. You know, like he's reached his potential and he is who he is. And I love that he's tough and he's organized and he, you know, is really consistent. But, you know, the last time we saw him play just before Copa America, he struggled, right? So I really like the way that Mark McKenzie has grown into a center back. So it's 1, 2, Vickers 3, Trusty 4.
And Scally 5? Or where's Scally for you?
As a center back, yeah, Scally's 5.
Okay.
As a center
All
back.
right.
But
Big Jones, I'm going to go to you, and then as resident center back, I will chime in on who I think. Your thoughts?
I put Richards first, but I still want to see him have good performances with the U.S. team. Like, I just need him to be a little bit more solid. I think Mark McKenzie's been outstanding, and as Charlie says, the direction's going like this, you know, for Mark McKenzie. He continues to get better, and he'll continue to get better. He hasn't peaked. We said we're leaving Ream out, right, for this camp. Is that what we said? So we're leaving him.
I'm just
Right,
saying
right.
him out. We need like
Him and
a
Miles.
European-based center back
Yeah,
temperature
yeah,
check.
yeah. Cameron Carter-Vickers, I can't get Copa America out of my head. It's my problem. Like, I just can't get out of my head, like, his performances. And I watch their league. I try and watch that Scottish league. It's so hard to judge because, if I'm being honest, some of the teams are so bad, man, to watch. I would prefer to see him in England or someplace else. And look, they're in a great situation. Celtics, massive club, all that stuff. It's hard for me to judge based on what I see on the weekends. And what I look at this, who's getting bigger plaudits at the moment? Remember, Cameron Carter-Vickers 2 years ago was the Celtics MVP, right? But people keep talking about Trusty. Trusty's every bit the passer that Cameron Carter-Vickers is, and if not better. And he plays on the left side with left foot, which we don't have a lot of. Like, so if I'm thinking about sort of upside moving forward, like, I'm thinking more Trusty than Cameron Carter-Vickers. I feel like Cameron Carter-Vickers, like, we know who he is, right? We know the center back he is, where I feel like there's more still to come from Austin Trusty, right? And his growth and all of that. So I don't know. I would put Trusty ahead of him right now, with especially given the timing, a year and a half out from the World Cup. That's kind of how I would go. Richards, I'm first with Richards. I still want to see more consistency from him. I do. I need to see it camp in and camp out. Hopefully, we're going to see a lot, I think, in Nations League of what Pochettino's thinking. Like, he's had now time to see guys, study guys, have guys in camp, see them at their club team. Like, I think we're going to get real close to Pochettino's World Cup thoughts in the Nations League. It is just my opinion.
And I'll say this, and I don't know if I've mentioned this yet in our recent podcasts, that Gold Cup roster too is going to be, I know that a couple players might not be available for the Club World Cup, but in 2005, when I had to make that Gold Cup roster, right? Because if I was going to make the 2006 World Cup, because that's your opportunity to most likely be around everybody for a month of games, camaraderie, behind the scenes.
It was different back then, Jimmy.
Training. Okay, I get it. Yeah,
significance.
Everything's different back then. I hear the same bullshit everywhere I make comments when I'm referencing my past. Okay, that's fair. It's different, but also, how is there not some opportunity for somebody to get a month run? Like, I think if you get it called in, it's better than not. Like, if you don't make that Gold Cup roster, let's say it's outside of the big names, right? Because of whatever reason, injuries, or they've got FIFA Club World Cup, then if you're not part of that Gold Cup roster, the odds of going to the 2026 World Cup, I think are pretty much done. I don't know how
basically
you're
everyone at January camp now is what you're saying. If you're not
or it could
in
be
the Gold Cup,
you got Ledesma's, you got others that are potentially hanging around the fringes that aren't in the January camp. But if you're not part of that roster, I think you don't have any chance. So yes, I agree with you. Ultimately, the Nations League is going to be a very important sign of what that looks like, because you might not have all those players available for the Gold Cup. But if you're not part of that Gold Cup roster, I don't think you're making the 2026 World Cup team. So in saying that, my center back line, I think I got McKenzie first. He's got the experience of actually playing under Pochettino, and I think he's the lock to start in the Nations League. Obviously, without Ream involved, I would say Richards is there second. I like the Trusty argument a lot. I in terms of wanting to see more of a certain player, especially because Pochettino has a long history of knowing Cameron Carter-Vickers, having been around him with Tottenham back in the day. Then yeah, why not give Trusty a look? I do think that Scally does have an opportunity too, as well, because he's already proven that he can thrive so far under Pochettino, and that gives him an edge over some of the other guys as well. So I think the two locks for sure to start, I would say, are McKenzie and Richards. I think Scally would probably be my three. I put Trusty four, and I put CCV fifth. He hasn't performed well enough in recent U.S. men's national team performances. He's already known quantity to Pochettino. So that's what I'm going with.